Hello everyone. Today we will be going over case initiation or case creation within CourtView. I will be talking to you about two particular case types, criminal and traffic. The civil case creation will be covered within a different segment. Within this video, I will be going over the different parties required for criminal case creation, as well as any necessary fields. I will also be going over action codes, events, and information dockets. However, before we do all of that, I would like to show you the path necessary for you to access the criminal front screen. The steps are as follows. You're going to want to go to Modules, Case Management, Functions, Case Initiation. This path will lead you to the Case Selection Case Management front screen. On this particular screen, you are going to see an Add Record Dynalink, which is Dynalink number 1. You are going to want to select it, and this will bring you to the Case Code Selection screen. Within this screen, you will find all of the case types available for your court listed in alphabetical order. For the sake of this training, I am signed in as Carson City Justice Court within our test environment. So to begin, you are going to want to select the case type that corresponds with the type of case you would like to open. And this is important to remember when it comes to case initiation. For this instance, you will want to select the criminal case type since we are initiating a criminal case. So we will select criminal, and you will notice that this brings you to the criminal front screen. Along with that, there are also some differences between a criminal case creation screen and a traffic case creation screen. For example, the traffic case creation screen will have fields for car and driver information, whereas you can see that the criminal case creation screen does not have those fields. So the fields will vary depending on the case type that you are working with. So another thing that I want to point out is that the prosecutor, the file date, and the case status will populate within you opening up that particular case type. So these three fields automatically populated whenever you go ahead and open up a criminal case type case. And they will be based off of your court as far as the prosecutor goes. The file date will obviously be the 7/24/19 since I'm opening up the case today, and the status will be open because, again, I'm opening up the case today. However, these fields can be modified if necessary. So let's go ahead and start with our case. The first field that I want to go ahead and talk about is the number type. If you select the drop down next to the number type, you will see that there are various arrest number type codes and descriptions. These vary from arrest report to citation to booking sheet. If you don't have these, then you do not have to fill this particular field in. It's not necessary for case creation. What that means is the case will allow you to save it without these fields populated. So let's say I don't have a number type and I don't have a number for it. So then my next field would be officer agency. Let's go ahead and say that I know that the officer agency is NHP. I would type that in and then hit tab. As you can see, the officer agency is then populated for me. So then I want to hit tab, and that's going to take me to my next field, which would be officer. I would type in the officer that I need if I knew his name. If not, I could go ahead and do the drop down, but that's going to provide you with a very long list of officers within the officer agency of NHP. But let's say that I know that the officer's last name is Ames. So then I'm going to hit tab, and I'm going to verify that the officer that I want is Ames Justin, because it could be that there are more than one officer with the same last name. So I want to verify that that's the correct name. So I have the correct officer here, and the jurisdiction of state of Nevada is then populated. Let's say that I don't have a complainant, so I'm not going to fill that in. If I did have a complainant, then I could go ahead and fill that in and then tab. But then that takes me to my defendant name screen. What we suggest when you are entering in a defendant name is that you go ahead and type in whatever name you need to type in. In this scenario, for me, it'll be last name Test, and it'll be first name Test as well. Once you have the last name and the first name populated, we suggest that you hit search. And what this does is this allows you to look within the system and see if there's already an identity with that particular name. Make sure that the address matches and the date of birth, just to ensure that you're selecting the correct identity. And then you're going to want to select the defendant, verify again that it's the correct one, and hit select. And this also avoids there being duplicates within the case management system as far as identities go. So once I have my defendant selected, I'll go ahead and say select, and see it populated all of my defendant information because someone had already entered this information in prior. So it populated my driver's license number, the state, license type, their date of birth, their social security number, their race code, their gender, their hair type, their hair color, their height, their weight, and their eye color. It also populated their defendant status, the date of that particular defendant status, their home address, and their city, state, and zip. If I had searched within this, if I had searched here and not found the defendant that I needed, I could just type in their last and their first name. I would put in a middle initial if necessary, a prefix or suffix again if necessary, their social security number if your court chooses to put that information within the case, their date of birth, and their and then the system will create this X reference for you. So once I have these fields populated, like I said, this X reference will be populated for you. I would hit OK. And then I would go in and fill out these different fields myself. But since I selected an identity that was already in the system, then these fields have already been populated for me. And these fields are required in order to save the case. you need a race code, hair color, gender, all of these fields that you see populated, you're going to want to have within the case in order to be able to save it. Now, let's say that my defendant status is not correct. It's not cite and release. I would hit this little drop down. And let's say that this defendant is under house arrest. Then I would go ahead and select house arrest. Or let's say that this defendant is currently within the Carson City Jail, and that's where they're being held. Then I would go ahead and select Carson City Jail and select, and see how my defendant status changed from cite and release to Carson City Jail. And then there are some other fields here. If there's an attorney for the defendant, then you're going to want to go ahead and put this information in the screen. If not, then you can go ahead and move on to the action code portion. And an action code can be defined as, it's a Nevada revised statute basically, and an action code initiates a case in court view. It consists of the charging Nevada revised statute, a Nevada offense code, a commercial federal regulation, a county ordinance, a municipal ordinance, or a combination of the above on criminal and traffic case types. However, action codes are also used in court view on civil case types as well. And that's just a little explanation of what an action code is. So then let's go ahead and go into this action code field. This is where you're going to want to type in whatever action code you have for this particular case. Now, let's say that mine is mayhem, and I know that that's what this action code will be. So then I will go ahead and type in and hit tab. See how it populated and brought in the action code for me, as well as the description and the degree of offense. So it brought all of it in for me. If I didn't know what the particular NRS was for this action code section, I could go ahead and select the drop down, and it would give me a list of the action codes available for my court. I could then type in a description up here, and type in mayhem, hit search. It's telling me no records found. Here we go, mayhem. So then I would hit select. And then another important field that you're going to want to go ahead and populate is the on and the offense time. So let's say that this happened on 07/23/19. I would hit tab. It populates the to field for you. And then if the offense time was, let's say, 10, hit tab. It populates 10 a.m. But if I wanted to change that to 10 PM, I could. Then we're going to go to the PCN number field. If you do not have that particular number, you can go ahead and just leave it blank. It's not necessary for case creation. And then I would tab over to my citation number fields. Again, if I don't have that, I don't need to put that in. And then there's a bail amount section. If there's a particular bail amount that your court charges for this particular action code, then you can go ahead and fill that in that section. So this is basically what a criminal case initiation screen will look like after the fields have been populated. Once you have this information here, then you can go ahead and hit save. See how it's giving me a number type and number have not been entered. Do you wish to continue? The system's just letting you know that you haven't entered in a number type or a number. Again, these fields up here, if you don't have that information, you don't have to put it in. It's not required in order to save the case. However, the system will ask you, do you want to continue? If you want to go ahead and continue, you say yes. And the system will issue you a case number. So in this case, it issued 19 CR 00980-1C. The 1C is my court identifier, and the 19 is the year that I'm opening the case. The CR is the case type, so criminal. And then this is the sequential order of criminal case numbers that have been opened for your court. So once you have this pop up, you have your case number, and I can either say okay, or I can hit the override button, and I can choose to override this number. Let's say I know that I know that 980 is not correct. This should be 982. So then I can go ahead and change the number within the sequence number fields. And there's also a field available for an extension number. If the defendant is part of a case where there are more than just one defendant, or there are defendants involved, then you can go ahead and choose to put an extension number here. But for the sake of this example, I'm going to just leave it as 980, since that is the number the system originally issued. So then I'm going to hit OK. Or again, if you made a mistake, you accidentally hit override, you weren't supposed to be on this screen, you can always hit cancel and it'll take you back. So once I say OK, then it's going to give you an initial appearance / event information screen. So this is where you can go ahead and manually schedule a court date. I'm currently looking at Judge Armstrong, so he's the judge. The event that I have is an arraignment hearing, and location is Department 1. I can go ahead and search for a block date. So let's say I'm going to search for 07/15/19, hit tab, start time, let's say I know that it's going to be at 9 a.m. Then you can go ahead and say okay. Or if you choose to auto schedule, you can do that as well. And what the auto schedule does is it will bring up the automatic time block selection screen, and it'll give you the times and the days and the blocks available for the judge within your court. And then this way you can just go ahead and, if I know that I am scheduling this for 7:30-19 on a Tuesday, then I can go ahead and just select it and say select. But if I don't want to do it this way, then I can go ahead and hit close. Again, I can put in my block date of 07/15/19, tab, and let's say I know it's at 9 a.m. I can hit tab. And then if you choose to put in any comments as far as the event, you can go ahead and do that as well. Once I'm satisfied with this information here, I can go ahead and say okay. And if my date is scheduled in the past, like this is, then I can say, no, this is not correct. I made a mistake, and type in a different date. So the system catches those things for you, and it will ask you, is this correct? And you can either say, yes, I would like to continue, or no, this is not correct. So then let's go ahead and change this to let's see, let's go ahead and do 8/12 at 9 a.m. Say okay. And if this particular block does not fit the event code description, you're going to get a pop-up that says something along the lines of, this block does not hear this type of event. Do you want to continue? You can go back in and say, no, I made a mistake. Go to the drop down and find, okay, it wasn't supposed to be an arraignment hearing in custody. Excuse me, it wasn't supposed to be an arraignment hearing out of custody. It was supposed to be an arraignment hearing in custody. So then you're going to want to go ahead and select it. Hit select. Put in the start time. And then say, okay. And once you do that, you will see at the bottom of your screen, so it'll be at the bottom of the left-hand side, a message that says store successful. That's an indicator that the event was stored, the case was stored, so then now you have created your case. In this case, it'll be 19 CR 980 1C for the party or the defendant of test. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open this up, and I'm going to go to Dynalink number 3, docket entries, and see how on 7/24/19 I scheduled an in custody arraignment hearing on 8/12/2019 at 9 a.m. So what the system does is it automatically throws a docket for the events that you have scheduled. In this particular case, it's an in custody arraignment hearing. I can open it, and here you will see, again, it's got information pertaining to the type of event. It's an arraignment hearing. I have the date, the time, the judge, and when it was filed. So then I can go ahead and close here. And that is the event docket. But let's say that I need to add another docket to this case. And let's say this needs to be purely an information docket. So there's two types of dockets. There's information dockets, and then there are cost dockets. Cost dockets will be covered in a later segment. For now, we will just be talking about information dockets. And information dockets are usually just to track a particular type of scenario with whatever case you have. So for example, let's say I need to add a miscellaneous docket. So if I know the code, I can go ahead and type that in and then hit tab and see how the miscellaneous information condition docket was thrown. If I don't know the particular code for the docket, then I can go to the dropdown, and then I will get a list of all the dockets available for my court. These here are cost dockets because they're throwing money on the case or adding money to the case, money due on the case. And then there are dockets that are purely for informational purposes. Like this one is an amended complaint filed. If there was an amended complaint filed by the DA on this particular case, I could select this, I could highlight it, select it, and it would throw that docket on the case. So I'm going to close out of here. And it threw my miscellaneous information docket. And let's say that I needed to enter in a note for this particular case, such as defendant in custody, attorney retained. I'm going to hit save and see how it threw this miscellaneous information docket, but it also added the comment that I entered into that particular docket. So that is basically what you want to do whenever you want to add a docket to a particular case. In this case, again, it was an information docket. And the dockets will be tracked here, and there you'll see the docket date, you'll see the descriptions. If you add a cost docket, then it'll show an amount here and an amount due here. So then I will close out of here. Another thing that I want to show you is what we call the party charge maintenance screen, or the three dots, which are the ellipsis buttons. So the party charge maintenance screen is where you can go to look at the action code, look at the charge description, the offense date, and the degree of offense, but this is also where you're going to want to go in case this charge is amended. So if you get an amended criminal complaint from the DA saying it's no longer mayhem, it's something different, then you would put in that amended charge here and hit tab, and then that would populate the amended charge and then the amended charge degree of offense here. If for whatever reason you're not able to find a particular action code, then all you would need to do is go ahead and contact the trial court service desk, and we would then go ahead and add it for your particular court so that it was accessible to you. Another important section here is the disposition code and the disposition date, as well as the termination code. So the termination is important for USJR purposes. And if your court is on electronic DMV convictions, then whenever you put in a disposition date and a disposition code and hit save, it will automatically send that DMV conviction through. So these are some fields that you want to be aware of as well within the party charge maintenance screen. So that covers the case initiation section as far as criminal case types go. If you have any questions on any part of this process, please feel free to contact the trial court service desk for any part of this process. We're always happy to help. And if you have any concerns, again, please contact the trial court service desk.